the Rockies. They mostly hiked. He took her places he'd lived with his father, a trailer park, a hunting lodge that was now torn down, a cave. He found the Chimney, which stood alone in a woods of saplings. Matthew thought it must have been rebuilt and burned down again. They camped there, and Matthew built a fire on the old hearth. The smoke would not go up. It curled around the top of the fireplace and floated away. But then flames started coming out the top of the chimney, and the bright gases shot high for a few seconds, then subsided. Burning leaves floated away in a constellation of embers. "Isn't that dangerous?" asked Crocus. "Yes," said Matthew, "but not this one. This was just old leaves and sticks. Maybe they were bird or raccoon nests." "I think this is a sign," said Crocus. "You returned, and the gods cleaned the chimney with fire." Matthew knew that was a joke. She thought no such thing. "I have power that you do not know," he said. Crocus laughed. "Don't start spinning tales again. I mean it. I can buy this land. I lived like an urchin for most of my years, and now I have a lot of money." "Oh, come on. I'll prove it. When we get home, you can see. It's enough to do anything. To disappear." "Why do you think I cared about money?" "Everybody cares about money. They have to." Crocus looked down. "Why did you lie?" "I didn't lie. You didn't tell me the truth." "I wasn't hiding it." "I wouldn't exactly ask if you had tons of money." Matthew fell to his knees. "We can live here." "With a liar?" "Will you marry me?" He reached into his pocket and took out a ring. It had a big diamond. Crocus laughed and started crying. "I promised myself if you ever gave me a diamond, I would say no." "Please, Crocus, do me the honor. I love you like no other." "Yes," she said, "but it won't be in a church." "I know that," said Matthew, hugging her from his knees. "Our vows are stronger than God's." She stroked his hair. "My Matthew," she said. "Stand up." He stood and they kissed. And then he said, "I need to tell you one other thing. My name, the one my father gave me, it was for a reason." "You told me," she said. "He looked at your eyes and you look like a wolf." "No, there is more. I can't tell you everything, but I have a special power." "A special power?" she said apprehensively. "Is this a joke or another lie? Have you been hiding something?" "You have to keep it secret." "Matthew," she said, taking his arms and pushing him back. "I can't marry you. Not with this bubbling up at the last second. That's crazy." That reminded Matthew of Natty. "God damn it, how could I be so dumb?" he thought. "Please, Crocus, it's nothing bad." "This is crazy," she said. "What's wrong with you? What is it?" Matthew could not answer for a few seconds. "I didn't want to lie to you anymore. She put the ring back in his hand, went to the tent, and zipped it up. Matthew stood, moving back and forth on his feet. He finally lay down by the fire and slept there. The ledge. Crocus wasn't upset the next morning. She didn't feel threatened by Matthew. She knew him too well for that. Every one of their days had been intense and deep. She was just confused. "Matthew, spirit wolf, whatever it is, I want you to tell me the straight truth. I don't care when you do that, but you have to be ready to tell me everything. Then you need to give me time to think, and there can be no other secrets. And I'm not promising to say yes. I'm just saying you acted like a 14-year-old boy last night who'd never been out on a date, and that freaked me out. So you have to be normal and do things the normal way. Married people don't have strange secrets, and they don't spring things on each other at the last minute. What if I did that to you?" Matthew hated himself. He said nothing, but he cooked the breakfast, and they went back to town mostly in silence. In that time, Matthew decided he would have to tell her the secret in the right place, so he suggested they rent a car for the trip home. He told her he wanted to show her something, and she agreed. He took a route that went past the place where he had taken the 12-year-old boy and brought him back from freezing, the one who wouldn't die. "You'll like this mountain," he said. "There's an amazing view. I was there years ago, and there's this ledge way up there with a flat place for a tent. You want to stay overnight? Come on, you only live once. You only die once, too. I'm not sure. Give it a chance. When's the next time we'll be here?" When they got to the trail, the peak was shrouded in fog. "It looks like a warlock would live up there," said Crocus. Matthew didn't know the way up because he had light walked there years before, and his uncertainty made Crocus uneasy. "You don't know the way?" she said. "It was a long time ago." The hike was hard going. It was not a popular trail, and it didn't seem like the view would be that impressive, even if the fog cleared. It wasn't a very tall mountain. The last part up to the ledge was the hardest. It was barely hikeable, and they should have used climbing gear. The only reason they persisted was that it was getting late and the area they had covered was rocky, uneven, and thick with vegetation, so there was no place to pitch a tent. "You've never been here, have you?" said Crocus. "Really, I have. It was easier last time for some reason. Come on, you'll love it." They finally made it, but the fog had not lifted. The ledge seemed to be in a detached space, and it was chilly and damp. Crocus was impatient. "Let's just make some food and get to bed. I'm freezing." Matthew cooked for her, and then they lay down. They huddled in their sleeping bags against each other, and they spoke little. Matthew couldn't think of how to tell her. He didn't think he would be able to do so back in civilization, and that meant she would eventually leave him when she found out. Or he could try to lead a double life, but that was unacceptable. His whole life had been one of hiding from the world, and he couldn't bear the thought of hiding himself from Crocus. But he doubted that he had words that wouldn't cause her to run away. Crocus fell asleep, and Matthew berated himself. Why couldn't he be like a tiger? A tiger wanders all its life and mates just once a year and has no need of love. But the Shining Men had cursed his father and him. He could live, effectively, forever, but love would either elude him forever or taunt him forever with its memory. He shut his eyes, but he could see a dark gray valley just beyond his world of joy, and he could see himself marching through it, sad and grim, never coming home and never reaching his castle. And no torch could bring light to the grayness because it would have burned out. Perhaps when she died, he would start his 15 years of starvation. He couldn't say the words. He could only hug Crocus and stare at the ceiling of the tent. Shining through the fog. They awoke together as an intense whiteness illuminated their tent. Matthew climbed to the door and unzipped it, and light flooded in. Crocus crawled up beside him. There was a bright ball floating about 50 feet away and a little higher than they were. It was perhaps 100 feet across, but too bright to reveal its edges. As if hypnotized, Matthew climbed out and stood in front of it. Crocus followed. Both were speechless as it drifted closer. A beam of light appeared. It was strange because they could see the beam extend from the orb slowly, and it formed into the shape of a man. It turned to Matthew, and pitch-dark eyes formed in its head. Then a slit spread itself across its face to form a mouth. Then the man turned to Crocus, and another beam came from the orb and enveloped her, and she disappeared into the beam, which receded back to the orb. The man held up his arm to Matthew, and then he transformed back into a beam and returned to the light. "No, you can't have her," screamed Matthew. But he knew he was powerless. It was too far to reach, even if he jumped at it. It hung silent and indifferent for minutes that seemed like years. If it flies away, he thought, I'll throw myself off this ledge right now. "Crocus," he yelled. "Astrid." Without preface, two beams extended toward the ledge. In one was the man. In the other, Crocus formed. and it laid her unconscious form to the ground. She emanated light that started to fade. Matthew lurched toward her, but the other figure reached out and touched his chest. Matthew's heart stopped beating completely, his lungs reflexively filled with air, and he felt his consciousness fading. It pushed him back to where he had been, and as he started crumpling to the ground, his heart started beating again. He doubled over as he took several desperate breaths, and then he stood to face the man. It looked at him, and his black eyes filled him with fear, but the fear gradually turned to trust, and then love. The man opened his mouth to reveal a blood-red cavity and said, "I am Grapple." Matthew croaked out, "I am Spirit Wolf." "You have things to do, Spirit Wolf. Crocus knows now. You will have a son with her. Raise him well." Matthew stared. "Grapple, you are my brother." He tried to form a question, but Grapple answered before he could say it. "You must be unusual to be in the light." Matthew took a moment to respond. "Unusual? To be? Am I going to become—" "You must try," said Grapple. "The decisions will be made." "Where are our brothers?" "Not here, but not far." Matthew was thinking of the words for another question. He wanted to know if that meant they were in America or in the same state, or did that just mean they were on the planet? But it was too late. Grapple dissipated, and the beam retracted. Then the orb shot into the sky and disappeared in no more than a second without making a sound. Matthew went to Crocus to wake her up. She was as young as the day he had met her. Her eyes fluttered, and she gazed at him. "I understand now," she said. "You do? But I did not tell you myself." "But I know now. I know why it was hard. But our time together now has been a tiny spark compared to the ages we will live together. It will float away amongst thousands more." Her smile was radiant and pure. Matthew took her in his arms. "We will have a son," she said. They did not need to talk anymore. The chimney. Spirit Wolf had built 2 rooms around the chimney by then. It looked absurdly out of proportion to the structure, but he had a plan for 2 more rooms. It would be nothing too permanent, because nothing could ever be permanent, but it would be something good enough until they had to move on. He was splitting wood, and a small boy came out the door. He wore no shoes and carried a stick which he hit against things as he walked around the yard. "Signal Bear," Spirit Wolf said, "if I cut 1/4 of a cord of wood for 6 days, per day, how many cords will I have?" The boy arranged several sticks on the ground. "Well, I don't know." "Count the sticks." 6. "Yes, Signal Bear, 6 quarters. But arrange them into cords." The boy counted a pile of 4 and another of 2. 1 cord and 2 parts. "What do the parts make?" 1/2. "So?" 1.5 cords. "Right." Spirit Wolf swung the axe. "Why do you ask me these things? You'll need them, Ammius. It's a changing world. You'll need many skills, and many more that I don't have. Best that you take all of mine and build on them." "When can I see Cameron?" "Whenever you want. Why don't we go see him tomorrow?" "Are you hunting soon?" "Not for a while, son." "How do you get the energy?" "The one who comes down the chimney can get the energy." "Santa?" "Not quite." "Then who?" "You'll know one day." "I know something you don't," said the boy. "And what would that be?" "The man who brought the package yesterday. He knows you." "Don't be silly, Ammius. I've never seen him in my life." "He said to tell you something." "When did he even talk to you? He was only here for a minute," said Spirit Wolf, putting the axe down. "Did he ask you any questions? Because you don't answer any questions. That's the rule." "No, he just said something. When you were signing that thing, He looked at me, and I knew what he was saying. What did he say? He said he liked me. Well, so what? He said he had many sons but couldn't have any more. He said he was proud of you. Spirit Wolf's eyes widened. He knelt down in front of Signal Bear and took his shoulders. Why didn't you tell me? I forgot until just now. Spirit Wolf searched his son's eyes. His son looked back with trust and love. The Man in the Woods. Spirit Wolf and Signal Bear were walking in the woods on a hunt. Signal Bear didn't know it was a hunt, but now that he was 10, it was time to start showing him how it was done. They followed a group of hikers along a trail. None of them separated from the group, and nothing else happened. On the way back, they met two men. They were on an overlook eating food, and they waved Spirit Wolf and Signal Bear over. It was a friendly conversation. The two men hiked a lot in the woods, and they too were father and son. They could hardly believe they had never met in a way. They had been in the same area often. Why do you have a pistol? Said Signal Bear. That? Said the father. It's just prudent out in the wilderness. A pistol won't stop a bear. No, but we have bear spray and flashbangs too. Actually, I'm just going on experience. You know, people go missing in these woods sometimes, and it's not always from bears, as I'm sure you well know. I've got a whole list of people who've gone missing, and one thing I've noticed is that people who don't go missing are those who are with someone else and who have a firearm. GPS doesn't hurt either. Oh, we aren't afraid, said Spirit Wolf. We're old mountain men, aren't we, Amius? He nudged Signal Bear in the arm. The man went on. If you don't mind, I'd like to ask you if you've heard of any strange things going on out here. Sometimes people have some interesting stories. Spirit Wolf suddenly recognized the voice. It was the voice that he had heard on the radio all the way back when he took the man's car in Texas. We've never seen anything strange, no. I mean, I've read about people going missing in the paper, but I've never been involved in any way. Well, count yourself lucky. Suddenly the man flinched as though he realized he may have sounded rude. I'm not here to lecture you. It's just sort of instinct to tell people to be cautious. We've lived out here a long time, said Spirit Wolf. We know what we're doing. Didn't mean to insinuate anything. I hope there's no offense taken. No offense at all, said Spirit Wolf. I'm more worried about you. I know these woods like the back of my hand. You two are the ones with the GPS. True, said the man, and they laughed. Spirit Wolf kept the conversation going for a polite period. Well, I think we'll be on our way, he said. By the way, I don't think we know each other's names. Funny how that happens in the woods. You don't really need names when you're the only ones for miles around, said the man. I'm Dave, and this is my son Ben. How about you? I'm Frank, and this is my son James. Pleased to meet you, said the man. Likewise. I hope to see each other again. Spirit Wolf and Signal Bear walked back down the trail. You did well, said Spirit Wolf. Don't answer any questions. You never know who you're dealing with. Spirit Wolf was glad he had the names. And then his stomach clenched. How could I do that, he thought. But then he thought, they'll never notice. Dave and Ben watched them walk away, and Dave said, Did you notice anything about those two? Not really. What were their names? Frank and James, just like they told us. Did you hear what Frank said earlier? What do you mean? Oh, wait a minute. That's right. Earlier he called his son Amius, didn't he? Yes, something like that. Strange, said Dave. Strange.